It is becoming increasingly more difficult to recruit good quality long-term teachers. We all know teaching is a very difficult field. It is not what it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Things have changed. Society has changed. Our world has changed. Everyone's viewpoint of what the classroom should be has changed.
You know, in a time long, long ago, not in a galaxy far away, but it used to be that education in schools was all about teaching the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Sometimes, as extra value, teachers might add a little geography and history and maybe a little Latin. Education is very different today. Welcome to this week's episode of Marion Voices, Public Schools Unplugged, where we will explore the challenges of teacher qualifications, recruitment, training, and retention. I'm your host, Tom Tull, along with co-host Susie Kuhn.
Hello.
Our guest today is Kevin Christian, who's the Director of Public Relations for Marion County Schools. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
And if you're a parent of a Marion County Public School student like I am, you will recognize his voice as the man who calls you more frequently than some of your family members. And if you could just give us a good evening, I think it'll familiarize everyone with exactly
I love doing this, especially when I'm with students. Good evening. This is the District Office of Marion County Public Schools. Yes, that's part of my job, part of my claim to fame.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we've been having a series of these interviews. We interviewed some students about Marion County schools and from their perspective what some of the challenges were. And then we talked with Mark Avery, president of the Teachers Union, and got his perspective. And so now we've decided we needed to hear the perspective from Marion County schools, and you're the goat who got it.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I will share certainly what I know from having been with the district for almost 24 years now. Much of it will be probably from a 30,000
foot level,
but I'm happy to share what knowledge I have.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming in. One of the things that came up in our previous interviews was the fact that there's a certain percentage of teachers in Marion County who are teaching who really aren't certified as teachers. They're sort of in the beginning or whatever. For instance, I think at the beginning of this school year, maybe there were 100 slots, teaching slots, that there was not a certified teacher of that subject area for it. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. We have several classrooms that don't have what I would call 100% bona fide, fully certified teachers. They are adults with some level of college experience behind them who may or may not be working on a full-time teaching degree from an accredited institution and eligible for a full-time teaching certificate from Florida's Department of Education. So it's not like there are people that we just pull them off the street and stick them in front of the kids. That's not, that there are standards that have to be met regardless of whether you have a teaching degree or not.
Right. Tell us about those standards.
Well, first of all, you have to earn a college degree, a Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Arts degree, a 4-year degree from an accredited institution that is recognized by Florida's Department of Education. The DOE here in the state of Florida is the licensing agency for teachers in public schools, and public schools include charter schools here in the state of Florida. So that degree from that accredited institution is verified, if you will, by the Florida Department of Education, and then you receive a teaching certificate from the state that you must maintain, meaning that you have to earn so many points or credits each year to maintain your teaching certificate. That teaching certificate typically is in an area that you have studied and become certified to teach. For instance, high school biology, K-5 mathematics, physical education. However, you can be certified in one subject area and teach another because you could be either temporarily certified, you could be locally certified, meaning that that certification is good only in Marion County Public Schools. So if you cross the county line into another district, then they would have to certify you. Give you a real specific example. I have sat on local certification committees for video production teachers, particularly at our middle and high school levels. It's a very, very specific skill, and not a lot of people have that. We have people who have gained, in some cases, decades of experience and won Emmy Awards in broadcasting, who maybe did not have that four-year college degree or didn't have that local teaching experience, but they went through the local certification process, which vetted their experience, gave them credit for that experience, and then certified them at the local level to teach our students video production skills.
That makes sense.
It's a very specific field, but again, go up 30,000 feet, and there are other subject areas that could qualify for the same kind of local certification. So the big caveat is you have to have some level of college experience. Usually that's 2 years of college level classes, and you have to be deemed eligible for a certificate by the state of Florida.
Yeah. And I think I remember seeing someplace that maybe 91% of all teachers in Marion County have some kind of certification like that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, there's just a very small number that are, I guess, those local.
I don't know any school district, at least in Florida, that can say we have 100%. We'd love to be able to say that, and we work toward that. But in today's society, that's really a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. How does the school system try to recruit good teachers?
Thank you for that question. It is becoming increasingly more difficult to recruit good quality long-term teachers. We all know teaching is a very difficult field. It is not what it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Things have changed. Society has changed. Our world has changed. Everyone's viewpoint of what the classroom should be has changed. So many colleges and universities have done away with their teaching programs, their teacher certification programs. They've done away with them because students are not choosing that pathway as much as they used to. So the pool in which we dive into to choose potential teachers has become smaller and more shallow in terms of depth. So we still appeal to colleges and universities with teaching programs. Our recruiting team will often go there in person to career fairs, or just if it's a celebration of seniors last semester or whatever the case may be, they may go there and set up shop, if you will, for 2 or 3 days and recruit teachers from that specific geographic area or from that specific teaching institution and sign those graduates, teachers to be, if you will, up to come to Marion County to teach. That's kind of the traditional method, if you will.
Yeah.
A lot of word of mouth now, relatives, family members, friends, those kinds of situations. We often use online platforms as well. Social media is a great place to advertise teacher vacancies because it's a worldwide audience. So we can talk with teachers from other states who perhaps want to move to a warmer climate, don't want to shovel snow anymore, or those kinds of things, or simply want to go to an area that's closer to family. People are moving to Florida every day. We know that. 240 or 50 people every week to Marion County. So that's another avenue social media provides to us to do that. There's really nothing off the table now when it comes to recruiting that we won't at least look at and consider, because that's the climate in which we live. There are fewer people out there. Another aspect or approach that's worked well for us in Marion County because of our retiree populations are second career teachers who've had great success in the private sector or in another industry, and they've retired from that industry or perhaps left it after 25 years, whatever that magic number is. And now they're looking for something different in their 40s or their 50s. And so we've been able to convince some of those individuals to come into our classroom. And again, referencing our earlier conversation, we work with them to become either locally certified or based on what their college degree is in, work with them to become certified through the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm. And that certification usually is based just on the subject matter area, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Not always, but I would say 95% of the time. An example that I will use is individuals who have spent their careers in higher level thinking careers, I'll say engineering. I'll use that one as an example. And they have retired as a civil engineer or as some kind of electrical engineer or whatever the case may be. And they retire to our area. Those are very specific skills. And so we can actually take those skills, and even though it's kind of a microscopic skill, if you will, in a very specific area, it can be applied to 612 science.
Right.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So that while that individual may have worked in electrical engineering for 25 years, well, that electrical engineering experience translates into the electrician trade in the construction industry in the state of Florida. So now you have somebody who's really honed in on the electrical mindset who can train students to become electricians to enter the trade and immediately out of high school make a really nice salary.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
So it's really it's a great opportunity for individuals who've had that success in a previous career. But I say it's an even greater opportunity for our students to learn from somebody with that kind of experience.
I think that's also great because I know when I was in high school, it was always, we're preparing you for college. We're preparing you for college. But not everybody and not all students are going to college and or even want to
Correct.
further their education. And they do need to be employed and they need to, take care of themselves and move out and they have bills and support their families and everything. It's kind of good. We're moving in the direction of, helping students get into different trades upon graduation.
We still train students for college.
Of course.
But we train students for enlisting in the military as well and for going into the workforce immediately after high school graduation. I always tell people, our school system is a microcosm of what society is. Whatever society is dealing with and what's happening in society, we deal with that at the school level too. So changes in the career path in society over the last few decades have reflected in the same in the school systems, and we've made those changes as well.
So, of course, this line brings me to three different things I can take off on. But since we're a microcosm, and I know that the school system has sort of magnet schools for different things, like you have the IB program, International Baccalaureate at Vanguard.
Correct.
And you have a program for warehousing and that
Logistics.
sort of stuff. Logistics.
And the entrepreneurship program that my son's
I think at
in
Forest,
Forest.
don't they have something about medical stuff at Forest?
HOSA clubs, Health Occupation Students
Yeah.
of America, I think. Yes. So, yeah, absolutely. And Westport has that as well. So.
Yeah. So why don't you have one on teaching?
We do.
Oh, do you?
We have a future teaching academy at Vanguard High School. Yes.
Wonderful.
That actually has a certified teacher. Imagine that. In a high school classroom working with students who want to become teachers.
Yeah. When I was growing up, it seemed like if you were a kid at a certain socioeconomic level and you wanted to go out and get a good job and support your family, you looked at nursing, teaching, and there's another one I can't remember now. Maybe it was plumbing or electrician or something. But teaching was seen as a career that would improve your living standard. If you were like me as a working class kid, I thought,
Sure.
teaching looks great.
It's a
And it was good.
reliable profession. It offers opportunity for growth and for a career of impacting students.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, as you say, it's a little different teaching now. Incentives. How do you compete against Miami school system or,
Well, who wants to deal with Miami traffic? Been there, done that. Not going back.
Some young people like the glitz and the lights and the nightclubs and
For those young people, they need to expand their wings and experience those kinds of opportunities. We did that. That's living life and becoming who you are and learning so much about yourself. But there are many people who find out after a few years in Miami or Orlando or Tampa or wherever that other metropolitan area is that growing up at home wasn't so bad. So we have a lot of people who return to Marion County to become teachers, and we're happy. We have students who graduate from our own schools who turn around and become teachers and become administrators and become principals and then become district administrators as well. So
yeah. What other kinds of incentives does Marion County have different incentives than other school systems, or are they all pretty much the same because of the state?
We're all competing against each other. So your incentives will be different from district to district. It really depends on where you are in the state and what the standard of living and the quality of life is. For Marion County, a beginning teacher salary with no experience, fresh out of college, is $50,000.
Wow. Really?
Now, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was a teacher in Vermont, and that was okay. I think it was half of that.
Well,
half of that.
Well, it hasn't always been.
That was many years ago.
That's correct. It hasn't always been 50,000, but our school board in our district has recognized that we need to invest in that beginning teacher salary to attract those beginning teachers to our area. Now, one thing I will point out that a lot of people don't consider is the benefits. The benefits package for a beginning teacher or for an employee of Marion County Public Schools adds about 40% to that salary. So you're really talking $70,000 to hire a brand new teacher because the district pays for health insurance. You can accumulate sick time, vacation time. There are holidays involved. There's life insurance involved. So there's a lot of those benefits that are packaged in. Now realize young people today aren't really interested in health insurance or life insurance. We have almost 3,000 teachers in our district. So we have to offer packages to the job classification, not to an individual person, so to speak. Right. So, but yeah, $50,000. And you have to remember teachers, they have a 10-month contract. So they work, basically, I'm rounding out here, August through May. They have June and July off.
They need.
But within the school year, they also have 2 weeks off at Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. And then they have a week off at Thanksgiving and spring break. So there are some break periods built into that 10-month contract that we all need.
Yes. Right.
So those are the financial incentives. Quality of life, Marion County is still pretty affordable when you look at the cost of living here versus other areas of the state. And we're geographically located within 2 hours of pretty much anything you can see, want, or do between Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa. We've got theme parks, we've got state parks, we've got beautiful beaches, clear rivers, we've got beaches an hour in each direction, so we are geographically in a great location. Now, interestingly, when I say the word geographically, Marion County is larger geographically than the state of Rhode Island. Right. A lot of people don't realize that. So you can drive from Dunellen Middle School, which is in the extreme southwest corner of Marion County, to Fort McCoy, which is in the extreme northeast corner of Marion County. On a good day, that's probably going to take you an hour and 15 minutes, maybe. With traffic, it might take you an hour and a half, hour 45. I mean, it just depends on the traffic. But we are a very large county. We have about 33,000 students who are eligible to ride the bus. Some of them don't. But on a given day, we have about 23,000 students who ride the bus. And those buses drive a lot of miles throughout a lot of rural areas of Marion County. So we're a large county. We have to take that into account. But that affords us some of those beautiful clear rivers to experience, or those state parks, or open spaces, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm a teacher and I get the 2 months off, I'm not on contract. So I either have to save a little bit from my previous paychecks in order to get through those 2 months, or I have to find some other work. Does Marion County offer teachers some kind of summer employment, like little 4-week or 6-week?
We have in the past, and we will continue, but summer school this year will look very different than it has in the last few years. The reason is because ESSER funding, which is a form of federal funding that was provided following COVID, that money is gone. It is no longer available.
Right.
And that is what paid for summer school, really, for anybody who wanted to go. And the more students we have, the more teachers we have to hire. So we're happy with both situations.
Right.
But when that money pool dries up, then we're basically looking at a summer school program this year that probably will be by invitation only. So it will be likely for those students who test at the lowest levels and need the most help in the shortest amount of time to advance to the next grade level. So those opportunities exist, yes, absolutely. But those teaching opportunities will be fewer and far between than they have been in the last few years.
Is there any indication that the state might step in and provide money for summer schools?
Not that we know of. We'd love that.
Yeah. I just know that Florida is either the third, fourth, or fifth, depending on which ranking you look at, the prosperous state in the union. I would have hoped that they would see the need to put more money into investing in their students than what we do.
We would welcome those funds and open those classrooms up to teachers and to students should they come our way.
Yeah. I understand you do not have a pay scale ladder like for experience. Is that true?
We do. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. As I mentioned, $50,000 is for a teacher with no experience. Let's take a teacher with 10 years of experience. Not a whole lot of an increase, but it's $51,656. If you go to the top of the scale, a teacher with 31 years of experience or more, they're making a little over $65,500 a year. We do offer incentives for advanced degrees. You get a supplement, an academic supplement based on your degree, whether that's a master's or a doctorate level. So you can increase your salary that way. We have some teachers who become club sponsors or do additional activities outside the scope of the normal workday, if you will. Coaching is an example of that. Yearbook sponsor, those carry additional stipends with them as well.
Okay.
So there is a way to increase your base pay. Absolutely.
Right.
And so I'm going to touch on a subject because I know that, there's a hiring shortage for teachers. And unfortunately, it isn't always uncommon to see a news report about Marion County Public School teacher or coach that's been arrested for inappropriate conduct with a student last week or the week before, I believe, my son's school, Forest. As much as I want my child's math teacher to be certified in math, it's probably more important to me that my son's teacher is not a child predator. And I think that all parents can agree with that statement. How is our district vetting new hires and safeguarding our students from individuals that may be child predators who, have a tendency to want employment as a coach or in school systems to be around young children and teenagers?
Well, I want to first tackle the word child predator because that's a term that is scary to all of us.
Yes.
And every single person that is hired by Marion County Public Schools goes through a state-mandated background check. Okay. And that is through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE. Sometimes those names are also checked against a national FBI database. So they go through the whole scope, fingerprinting, background checks. I had to do it 24 years ago when I entered the district. So those steps are taken, and depending on the job for which you were applying, you may or may not be eligible should your background check come back with positive results.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So you may have had a shoplifting charge
Yeah.
15 years ago. Well, that may or may not impact your ability as a classroom teacher.
Yes.
But certainly if you have a child abuse charge, you're not going to get in the classroom.
Okay.
You're just not going to pass that. Now, that said, Marion County Public Schools is the largest employer in Marion County. Not unusual in the state of Florida because the way school districts are set up in Florida versus up north, school districts are defined by county lines in Florida. So we have 67 counties, roughly 67 districts. There's a few more thrown in because they're specialized, but roughly 67 districts. And with a little over 7,000 employees, which is what we have, we are going to have people who make bad choices.
Yeah, we are.
You can have a company of 50 people, and there will be somebody who makes a bad choice. And it may or may not cost them their job. But I will tell you that as school district employees, we are by state law mandated first reporters. That means if any school district employee suspects child abuse or a child is being harmed in any way, we are required by law to report that, whether we believe it's true or not.
Yes.
If we have knowledge of it, we have to report it. Will we always have people who make bad choices? I hesitate, but I'm going to say yes. With 7,000 people on the payroll, we're going to have people. And our teachers, especially because they're in front of students every day, are held to a higher standard, both in the profession and in society.
Yes, and outside of work.
Okay.
Yes.
With that, and we all go into the profession knowing that. I used to say, I used to be in TV news, and I knew I wasn't going to make much money. But that wasn't a surprise because we all knew that. We all went into the TV profession realizing we're not going to make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So when somebody enters the teaching profession, they know they are held to a higher standard.
Yeah, you're under a microscope.
Absolutely.
When you're out in public. Yes,
you should be.
Because you're a role model for
But it doesn't mean that teachers shouldn't have private lives.
Of course not.
And they shouldn't be able to do things away from school on their own time.
Yeah.
So, everybody deserves time away from work.
Yes.
But when decisions during that time away from work impact your classroom teaching, then obviously that's where the district gets involved. And if it's serious enough, then we send the results of our investigation to the Office of Professional Practices in Tallahassee, and they may or may not revoke a teacher's credentials.
Okay.
So ultimately, the teaching certificate is issued by the state, and it can be revoked by the state as well.
Okay. And how are schools monitoring and screening public school employees to ensure that they're not texting or calling or, messaging students on social media or having, kind of crossing those boundaries with students?
We encourage our teachers to utilize the tools that we have provided to them in the classroom to communicate. That can be anything from a district-issued email account to a Skylert account at the at the administrative level at a school. There are some, I will call them third-party applications out there that teachers choose to use on their own. I don't necessarily endorse that.
Google Teams or different things.
But we as a district provide official communication platforms and channels for our teachers to utilize. The biggest one is Skyward.
Yeah.
You can communicate through Skyward. That's our big pie in the sky student database, employee database. So you can communicate through that. I caution any district employee, including teachers, especially teachers, because they have direct contact with students, to not use their personal social media accounts or even their personal mobile devices for that. Because let's say somebody complains about it and law enforcement gets involved, the district gets involved, then suddenly your private cell phone is subject to a subpoena that the district or law enforcement can then confiscate your phone. And none of us want that to happen.
No.
So there are tools that we provide, expectations certainly that we have as a district, and that the profession has, that you don't go outside those boundaries.
Yeah.
And I dare say, in the 24 years that I've been on this job, and there have been dozens of people who've been arrested, and every time I just kind of think, oh my goodness, at what point did they think this was okay? Because it was never okay. So
and the majority of teachers, like Tom and I have said, we know to protect ourselves. Like, we're not going to be alone in a classroom with a student.
With
we're not going to with the door closed.
Right.
Certainly not going to. I would never call a student.
Realize most of what we're talking about with this particular question.
Most teachers
happens away from the classroom, away from the campus.
Yeah.
And that's when those personal decisions become a professional question.
And really, I would assume the school system really depends on parents being aware of what their kids are doing because they're going to get those reports from parents.
We certainly want that level of involvement. It doesn't always happen, unfortunately, but yes, if a parent believes that there is inappropriate communication, especially if you have evidence of it, you need to bring that to the attention of the school administration. Okay. Absolutely.
So that's who you report to.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, everything goes to the school first.
The principal is the leader of that campus and the boss of those employees, so to speak, in loose terms. But I know we've spent 5 or so minutes on that.
Yeah, but
I just want people to understand it is an important topic in today's world, but it is by far the exception. We have incredible teachers who do great things every day and do what they're supposed to do, and we appreciate them for it.
Yes, and we love them. Yes.
I want to get back to helping teachers improve their skills and their craft. I know they have to have a certain number of professional education hours every year to maintain their certificate. How do those... do you bring in specialists on different topics that apply to the classroom that you then have a before school starts big meeting with all the teachers, or is it more specialized with somebody comes in just to talk to coaches about the best practices of coaching or something?
The answer is yes
to all those.
To all of that.
So you do all kinds of things.
It depends on what your specialty is, what your certification is in. For instance, if it is athletics related, we have a person at the district level who coordinates all of those athletic programs, works with all of those coaches, brings in whoever the specialist is that's needed to deliver whatever training is needed on whatever the particular topic is. Let's say it's, I don't know, I'm just picking a topic here, a student safety and first aid on the football field. Okay. Yeah. So that is a very specific training for football coaches, perhaps even basketball, baseball coaches, volleyball coaches, softball, track. I'm getting myself in trouble here. All of the athletics. Okay. So they bring in that person who provides that training to those coaches, to those personnel, and they are given credit by the district and by the state for that training. And that credit goes toward their teaching certificate renewal.
Right.
Same could be for mathematics. Let's say let's say reading, and you are a certified reading specialist. You have earned your certification as a literacy coach.
Yep.
That's a very specific training.
Right.
That's a very specific certification. So you have to have very specific training to maintain that. So again, the district would provide that. We may bring somebody in. It may be that we have somebody on staff that can train the trainer and then deliver that training.
Yeah.
So that's one way we're able to save money, save taxpayer dollars, is by using our own people to do that training. But it depends on the topic, the course,
the need
for that. But yes, that training goes on. You mentioned before school starts each year. That is one time when that happens, but professional training happens throughout the whole year.
Well, I suppose when you have early out, part of that might be professional training.
That is correct. We have teachers who come in after hours to obtain training, and they can earn a stipend for that because it's beyond the scope of their typical work day, their contract day, would call it. There might be people who go to conferences to get that training. There might be people who come in on a Saturday morning to get that training. And again, we would pay them a stipend because it's outside their contract hours. But yeah, that happens year round.
I'm glad you brought up conferences, because I know that I always enjoyed going to conferences because there are multiple workshops, and you could go to a different, whatever workshops interested you or you felt would be good for your classroom job. Does the county pay a stipend to go to a conference?
Not only do we do that in many cases, but we pay to have a substitute in that classroom while you're attending that conference as a certified teacher.
Okay. And as part of the package of, let's say I was a teacher and I was going to a conference, National Teachers of Education, or of English, NTE conference. So you pay for me to go. When I come back, is there an expectation that I provide a report of what I did, or that I provide workshops on what I learned, or
Probably.
something?
Not only do we
Certificate of
want
completion,
you
I'm sure.
to have that certificate or a report, we want you to implement what you learned in your classroom.
And how is that supervised, or I don't want to say supervised,
There's usually
verified?
There's usually a plan that employee, that teacher submits prior to attending that conference that says, I plan to go to this conference and get this knowledge and these skills, and when I return, I plan to share this by ABC with ABC, in their classrooms, or collaborative teaching, collaborative planning. It may be that you are the third grade teacher attending on behalf of your school, and when you come back, then you're going to share those lesson plans or those critical thinking skills with the other third grade teachers on your campus. Yeah. So yes, all that's spelled out.
The reason I ask that is I attended a conference once, and it was at a plush resort. Not that I picked that resort, but that's where the conference was. And I had a woman came up to me and said, "Well, I hope you're happy that the county is paying for your paid vacation here." And I want parents to know that when teachers go to conferences, they're expected to go to different workshops, and that they're expected to bring what they learn back to their classroom, and maybe even share it with other teachers.
Not just for teachers, it's for administrators. I attend a national conference every other year, and I bring back skills and tips and tricks and all those things that I can share with my team. Yes, those expectations are across the district.
Yeah. And this kind of leads me also into, I know one of the biggest problems in Marion County schools is attendance, that kids...
It is a challenge, and it's not just Marion County. It is
all over.
All over the state. It's nationwide. I belong to a national organization, NSPRA, National School Public Relations Association, and it's the hot topic right now.
And I assume that when you go to the conferences and they talk about that, they try to lay out some of the core reasons for those absences, and then I guess they talk about some possible, you can't call them solutions, but some possible procedures for helping.
We have a department, and I have a very specific person in mind. I won't mention her, but she knows who she is. And that is kind of her task, is to look at students who are chronically absent. And chronically absent means that you have missed at least 10% of the school year. It's not truant, because that's 15%. Right. But let's say in the first 5 days of school, you miss one day. Well, how much have you missed? You've missed 20%. You missed 20% of the school year in the first week. Yeah. So you not only are you truant, you're chronically absent. And I think a lot of families don't realize, well, my kid just misses once a month. Well, if your kid misses once a month, that's 10 days, because we have 10 months of school. So there's 180 days in the school year, and you can do the math. That's a significant amount of learning lost, because if students aren't in the classroom, they're usually not learning. So what we have found here in Marion County is that there's a myriad of reasons why students are chronically absent. It could be legitimate that they are sick.
The flu's been a rough one.
Yes, it has been very difficult this year. So that's pretty easy to document with a doctor's excuse. But what we find a lot of times is that there are challenges at home. Sometimes it's a family situation where mom and dad aren't around and the grandparents are raising those children, or mom and dad are working multiple jobs trying to make ends meet, and they're not home at 6 o'clock in the morning to get students up to catch the bus on time. There's no one solution because it's a different challenge or a different problem for every household. Now, I will say we have brought truancy court back, and truancy court is for the worst of the worst cases. And we don't have a whole lot of those, but we have more than I wish we had. But we have cooperation from the legal system to not only hold the students accountable, but to hold their parents or their guardians accountable. And when the judge gets involved and threatens jail time for parents or guardians who don't ensure their child is in school, that can get...
They tend to show up.
The problem kind of resolves itself pretty quickly. And, it's unfortunate that it has to get to that in some cases. But yes, chronic absenteeism. And you could probably have the best intended families, best intended students who, maybe they just take a family trip once a month and you miss 2 days of school. Well, now you're missing 20 days of school out of the school year. And it's not that learning can't take place outside the classroom. It's just that structured learning with a certified teacher in front of those students teaching that very subject matter. That's what they miss out on.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids who didn't miss school, not because I didn't want to. I didn't want to have to make up the work because it was twice the effort to make up the work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's also state law that there'd be 180.
Gotta be in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking with Kevin Christian, the Director of Public Relations for Marion County Schools. We've been talking about teacher recruitment and teacher education and some of the challenges with that schools face. We appreciate you being here. We're going to take a little break now, and then we'll be back.